Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Challenges Leaders Face Breakout session. I'm Marissa Sanfilippo, the Marketing Director with Priority Payment Systems Local. We are the sponsor of today's session and also the proud payment technology provider of the NJBIA, which means we help members save money on their card processing while also streamlining the way they accept and deliver payments. And we recently launched a new program called Net Zero Processing. So with that program, we're virtually saving you all of your money on your credit card processing, and you'll just have to swing by our table to find out what all of that means. Before we get started today, just a few housekeeping items. As to not go through all of the bios, please refer to your program so you can learn about our great set of panelists here today. We will be setting a time aside for questions, and we welcome you to raise your hand at any point for our moderators to call on you with your questions. We are also videotaping today's session, so please wait for the microphone to be brought over to you so that everyone in the room can hear your questions, and also be mindful of the camera as you move around the room. And now I'm proud to present a woman who does not need any introduction, who will be today's moderator. She is the former Lieutenant Governor, who is now a partner at Connell and Foley, LLP, concentrates her practice on assisting public and private clients with complex civil and regulatory litigation, white-collar defense, public policy, crisis management, and internal investigations. As New Jersey's first Lieutenant Governor, we welcome Ms. Kim to be the moderator of our panel today.
She was really afraid about pronouncing my last name. I said, just skip it altogether, because for those of you who don't, Guadagno is not the easiest name to say. So I want to thank all of you for coming to the room today. It's going to be very hard to match what you just saw in the larger room. Karen Kessler is she's a very good friend. I'm one of those clients in the room, and she's very good at what she does. But what we're going to try to do today is discuss many of the challenges that face all of us every day, and that is the challenge of leadership and what we do to address it. Now, this panel is different than other panels because I've drafted a very good friend's son, speaking of networking, to come and speak about what it's like also to be an employee, a leader and an employee of a very strong woman-owned company. So Cary Feliciano is here, and I want to thank Cary for being brave enough to show up in this room. On the panel today is Charlene Davis. She's the head of Healthcare Compliance North America, Sun Pharmaceuticals Industries. Charlene.
Hello,
everybody.
Good morning, everyone.
Cary Feliciano, FEM Real Estate.
How's it going?
He's thrilled to be here, I can tell. You don't bite. Not to the Q&A part. Donna, Fontana, Senior Vice President, Broker-Dealer, Clearing and Bank Sales, Fidelity Investments.
Hello.
And finally, sitting at the end, because she has a broken ankle?
Well, healing from a broken ankle.
Healing from a broken ankle. As Krishna Powell, President, HR4, your small business LLC. You have your hands full these days. So we're going to get started right away with an obvious question. I mean, I know you all want to always talk about successes, but I'm more interested in failures and how you've overcome your failures, because I think that's a lesson that we all need to learn. So we're going to start right now with our first. Charlene, if you don't mind, we're going to answer the following question in 2 minutes or less. 2 minutes or less. Tell us your one major failure or one failure that sticks with you, and how did you get past it? And that's particularly appropriate for me under the circumstances, given the last election, and how you get past it. So this I want to hear.
Sure. So thank you for that. I do appreciate you moderating the panel, and thank you to NJBIA for inviting me out to speak.
Can you all hear?
Today. I'm not sure if this is on or not. Is it?
Maybe just pick it up.
Okay.
Yeah, just
Pick it up. Okay. Now I feel like a rock star just a little bit, right? I think that the topic of failures is an interesting one, because I've always been of the philosophy, and certainly have applied it in my career, that the timeline of your career is really fraught with inflection points where you have these situational experiences where you can make choices. And in those choices, you're making a decision and you're hoping to get the outcome that you want. When you do succeed and you achieve that outcome, I think objectively people can note that as a success, an achievement. But I think there's far more learning when you're faced with a situation and you don't get the outcome that you're looking for. And whether you classify that as a failure or an opportunity to learn more, I think is really up to you as to how you are as a professional and how you choose to lead. I've had some recent things that I've encountered that, for me, I felt as though perhaps I failed there. The most recent one was I have a team of individuals that report to me, and two of those individuals resigned to go to other companies. For me, I took that as a personal failure that I could not keep the team together. However, in that moment, I really took an assessment in terms of what was going on with me as a leader. For me, failures are the moments where you have that self-reflection and you're really considering what were the choices that you made, how did you go about building that team, why did you make that decision, and why do you feel the way that you feel now. As I progress in my career, I find that I have fewer moments or less time to wallow or to identify a moment as a defeat. I have too many eyes watching me. I have too many other things that I have to do, objectives that are still on the plate to get done. And so my time or the opportunity, the time that I have to sit back and say, well, that was a failure, I did not succeed at that, really becomes truncated. There's just too much I have to do.
Oh, that's great. So what you're saying is you take a minute, you evaluate
Absolutely.
it, you learn from it, and then you move on.
Right. Essentially, that's essentially what I attempt to do. But I guess the advice or the feedback to the team here, the individuals here, is that you will find it to be very dynamic. And I would not define moments as failures so much. I think you learn the most from the opportunities that you don't actually get to achieve.
That's great.
And I think I'll leave that with the group.
There'll
here.
be more to follow up on. I think we have some topics that'll go back to that. Cary, first, could you tell us a little bit about your, I know we're not doing bios, but who do you work for, and how long have you worked for her?
So I work for my mom in real estate development, FEM Real Estate. Mimi Feliciano, she's a very strong woman. I've worked for her for about 5-6 years, probably. Well, I mean, I've been working for her since I was like 15, but officially I've been working for her for about 7 years. And we just recently, 5 years ago, got into the real estate development business, and I've been the project manager on the project we're building. It's a 47 condo project in Long Branch, New Jersey, and just doing all the administrative stuff that basically she would be doing if she was 20 years younger. So.
And Cary, let me warn you, this is being taped.
Oh.
So tell us a little bit about, you're 26 years old, right? So you're giving us a perspective from a millennial point of view, and also from a family-oriented point of view, and also from working for a strong woman point of view. What failures have you had, and how have you decided to deal with them?
Well, one of the things that, because it's the family business and because it's, my name is also Feliciano, I kind of take it a little bit more, I take a little bit more on emotionally than I would otherwise if it were some other company, and I wouldn't necessarily care if they didn't, care about my suggestions, because it doesn't affect me. It doesn't affect my reputation at all. It's not going to affect me in 10 years. So one of the failures that we had experienced at first was with regard to the project. We decided, my boss and Mimi had decided that they didn't want to do a lot of visuals with regard to the project we're building. They thought people would be able to see off floor plans because we were pre-selling the condos, and they thought that the project would kind of just sell itself. And from my experience, I just graduated from college 4 years ago. I've seen a lot of different things that companies are trying to do with regard to wowing people and being very interactive and visual. And I recognized and realized that the only way we were going to be able to sell these was if we had some sort of wow factor of visuals. And
So what did you do? I'm going to move it on just a little bit. So did you win that battle?
no, I didn't.
And what did you do when you lost the battle?
Well, I conceded with the caveat that I said, you know, I think we should really get somebody else's opinion. Bring in a developer's, one of our partners that we had on something else. I said, you know, ask him his opinion, see what he thinks, because I think, you know, it doesn't matter what I think because I'm only 26 years old, but you know, if what he has to say has some weight, you know, listen to him. And he had the exact same opinion that I did with regard.
So do you now have visuals?
Yes, we do.
So to translate that, you saw a problem, you lost the fight, you brought in an expert to support your argument, and now you've actually turned it around.
Yes.
Is that it? That's fabulous. Donna, Senior Vice President, Fidelity. Your failure, and how did you overcome? Don't you like to talk about this on tape?
This is terrific. This got me up at midnight when I realized I thought I'd put this behind me. But
Well, we're starting with the failures, and we're going to move to positive stuff in a minute.
so I'm in sales, so failure's a pretty typical day. But when I looked back in my career, I recall this is over 25 years ago, but it's significant. I was asked to do something. I was in an operating role. I was asked to make a change. The details are not significant, but I was asked to make a change by a senior manager. I didn't like this person, so I didn't really want to spend much time with them getting all the details, so I thought I had what they wanted correct. In the end, it was not correct. He was not correct. I shouldn't have taken the shortcut that I took just because I didn't want to spend time with him. I should have dealt directly with the client, and my learning was that shortcuts do not help no matter how busy you are. You need to go to the source. The source is normally the client who is requesting a change, and because of that mistake, for a full day, trade confirms went out to clients under the wrong broker-dealer's name. I had to rectify the situation by calling the client directly, taking ownership of the problem. I never mentioned how it happened. I offered, this was before email, if all personal letters needed to be sent to all the clients. To this day, that client will trust me with anything because of the way that I handled the situation and never put the blame on anyone else except for myself.
So the bottom line is you took ownership, admitted what you couldn't deny, and then turned it into something as positive you could, and then you kept clients because they're loyal to you because they trusted you.
Correct. Trust is
in your business
can't
especially.
underestimate.
Krishna, same question. Krishna, you are HR for your small biz LLC. How long have you had the company?
So I've had the company about 7 years now.
7 years, and successful?
Yes, very successful.
You have 20 seconds to do a commercial. Go for it.
Well, at HR for Your Small Biz, we show leaders how to manage their multi-generational workforce, in particular millennials and Gen Zers, to increase profits, productivity, and performance.
There you go. That was the 30-second elevator speech, if anybody ever wanted to know. You have to learn one. When I joined the law firm, I said, what do you do? What's my 30-second elevator speech? And it was everything but matrimonial and securities work. I said, okay, I'm good. Connell Foley, by the way. It took me a full 3 minutes there. The Connell Foley in the back. Raise your hand. There you go. This is my pin. Okay. That's 3 times in all of 30 seconds, so it's good. Anyway, Krishna, let's ask you the same question. Have you faced failures? And if so, what did you do in response?
So I have a background in human resources, more than 20 years. And my failure came when I was promoted at a Fortune 100 company. I was sitting in a meeting with my new group, and they were sharing information and had some great ideas, but I also found figured that there was opportunities for improvement, but I decided not to say anything because I was the new kid on the block. Not only that, but I was the only young lady in the room, so I was a bit
Just
intimidated.
young lady, or were you the only African American young lady?
Both.
Yeah.
Both. So the only African American, but also the only woman in the room. So, and I was in a male-dominated industry, and it was a bit intimidating for me. So I remained quiet. And when I left out of the room, I shared an idea or my suggestions and thoughts with the secretary when she asked me, hey, what did you think of it? And I told her, and lo and behold, she went back and shared with the leader and said, hey, Krishna had these ideas and suggestions. And the leader came to me and was like, why didn't you share it? How dare you sit here and be quiet? And so I shared with him why I was quiet, and he just reminded me, it was truly a failure that I sat there and had ideas and suggestions for improvements and did not share those thoughts and suggestions with him. So I had to learn how to speak up and do so in a professional manner, but at the same time, let my voice be heard regardless of who is in the room.
And do you own your own business? Is that
Yes, I do.
Why'd you go out into your own business?
Well, I went out into my own business because I saw the need and the demand. People were saying, okay, can you come out and do this more? I was doing it on a volunteer basis in the beginning, and then from there it was, we need you more.
Great.
So that's what made me decide to step out, and my husband's encouragement said it's time.
Okay. So this didn't get nearly as depressing as I thought it would. I mean, like, I could do a better failure story, Binga, come on. I hope the video camera's on the panel and not on me. But I just got a good job after that. I was like, okay, it's all good. I took a shot and went on. Anyway, so we're going to move to something positive. And if you all are thinking and listening to these questions and answers, or if you see something about the panel that you'd like to follow up on, there's going to be a Q&A at the end. I have a couple of questions in case you embarrass us all by not having any questions. But think of who they are and think of where they come from. You have their bios in the folders there, and see if there's any questions you'd like to follow up on. Write them down or put them somewhere on your phone, and then be prepared, if you would, please, for the sake of the panel, to ask those questions when we get done. I'm going to move to the happy part, the successes. Here's your time, and then this is something I find women don't often do, brag. It's time for you to pat yourself on the back, give yourself credit, and I'd like to hear what you thought was a key success. It could be a little one that was pivotal, spit it out, I earn my living by speaking, pivotal and change the outcome, and it could have just been something you decided to do that day. So we're going to start, if you don't mind, with Charlene, and a success and how it changed your life. If it did.
Sure. So I think you make an excellent point. I think one thing women don't do often is brag, right? I think women, more often than not, take a more of a modest approach to business. To some degree. I would say one of the things that I would note as a success for myself has been some of the work that I'm currently doing. I'm currently Associate Vice President at a pharmaceutical company and head of North America for their compliance program. And when I joined the organization, there was no compliance program at all. It was just a blank slate. There weren't compliance professionals. There wasn't a learning portal. There wasn't anything. And working in what can be a male-dominated profession, and my organization certainly had that landscape to some extent, and also being perhaps 10 to 15 years younger than my peers, visibly, I was placed in a position where I really had to map out the blueprint of what I wanted to build, and I had to advocate for that, and certainly put forth the business case that these are resources that we need to spend money in this place. And compliance, as you know, is not one of those areas where you are making money. You're not a profit center, you're a cost center for most organizations. So it was certainly an uphill battle doing that. But I've always worked with the philosophy that your work is your autograph, right? And your talent will make room for you. So when you're thinking about achieving success, not just on a larger scale, but even for the smaller projects, it should be everything that you're putting your hands to, everything that you're leaving behind in terms of your work product. Hence the phrase, your work is your autograph. So for me, and I want to be mindful of time, building the compliance program now, which supports not just our U.S. entity of Sun, but also our U.S. entity of Taro Pharmaceuticals and a third multi-million-dollar company, Dusa Pharmaceuticals, that is certainly something that I think I could sit back on and feel pleasure about. I wouldn't necessarily say brag, because it's always something that you're evolving. And I think the moment that you sit back and say, well, that was good, there's always that next challenge. I think as a leader or a professional, you should always be growing and always understanding that there are members of your own team that you could learn from. And I think it was mentioned earlier in one of the earlier panels about keeping an entrepreneurial spirit. So I would note that as a success, if I were to mention
Good.
one.
No, perfect. Cary? Successes?
So successes, I guess from perspective of me and.
Can you all hear? Okay.
Actually. So one of the successes that I've seen with regard to Mimi and my boss was actually putting together this project that I'm the project manager for, and going forward when everybody else kind of thought that it was a little speculative, which it was, but they were able to actually, being the last ones to assemble the lots and blocks. I mean, we were the last ones to get approved, yet we were the first ones to actually get a shovel in the ground and get started building. And we kind of, we're a catalyst for all of the development that's going on around Pier Village right now, right there on the strip south of Pier Village. Set the market for price, just everything. I mean, the market in Long Branch is doing great right now.
So how did you do it? I mean, how did you push through that, oh, you can't do it here kind of attitude?
Well, I think mainly.
Sorry to interrupt, because what you're doing is also something different for that area completely, right? What you're building is very different. I live there, so very different than what we've seen in that area before, right?
Yeah, no, it is. And I mean, the reason why we were able to do it was just because, Mimi and my family, we are very, very familiar with the area, and we kind of are part of a demographic that we realized was not really being catered to, and a lot of great products and services and things that are invented by people are usually by the people that needed them, because they didn't find anybody else that could do it for them. So we just kind of felt that we knew our demographic strong enough, because we were our demographic, and there was enough of a need that we were able to come in. And I think what scared a lot of other people, because they weren't familiar with the area or the market, was not so scary for us, as that sounds. I don't know.
Well, it's always fun to do something new, right? Let me see now. Who's next? Donna?
I also work in a very male-dominated field, but I decided that to be my authentic self, and I really like to bake. So very early in my career, and I would go on sales calls, I would either bring home-baked cookies or I would send them afterwards. At one point, I was criticized for this in the organization. They told me, I have a
I should have
expense
sent
account.
cookies.
And I should just send cookies from,
Wow.
Mrs. Fields. And I said, but that's not the point. The point is I want people to show that I value their time, I value their investment in learning about what we offer to their company. And so I want to make cookies myself. And I was talking to my team about this, and so they bought me a big mix master so I can make more cookies. And I did say, though, of course, if this completely fails, understand that you had no responsibilities in it, but I'm going to keep making cookies. And I was entertaining a group of gentlemen at Madison Square Garden in a box, and they were all clients now that I had brought on board their companies. And when they wheeled in the cart of cookies from the caterer, I heard a little buzz, And they said, well, these aren't clearly as good as the one that Donna makes and has brought to meetings. And I thought, oh, please make sure that everyone in that room I had actually sent cookies to, and I had. And I recently did it. I was working on a deal in Dayton, Ohio, and it was a family business. And I, after the initial meeting, I sent cookies. I always now put a note like, these were made in a kitchen that I use nuts because I don't, in case anyone's got any allergies. And the owner of the firm, and it was a third generation organization, called me and said, we are looking at your organization after 27 years of using a different company, because this is what we're looking for. We are looking for a relationship. And the fact that you took time to make us cookies is starting this whole endeavor off on the right track.
Well,
So
and you
be
know what you
yourself.
started with that I liked? I wanted to be my authentic self. You can't fake that. You fake it, people will see it, right? That wasn't faked. You must have had a good recipe. But it was different, and it stood out. It made you stand out. That's a brave story, right?
Yeah, especially when initially I was, kind of criticized for it, but decided that it was the right thing to do, and I was gonna. They really can't tell me not to make cookies. But, I took a little bit of a chance because it was HR that had called me to tell me not to do it. But
So write down one of your questions is, I want the recipe. But you get the idea. The thought is to do something different that's true to you, so people see it when you go and talk to them about it. That's fabulous. That's fabulous. Krishna, how do you beat that?
Can't beat that, but
Yeah.
I can just share my success has been going from spending 20 years in human resources to really pursuing my passion, which is working with young professionals, and having them to come back to me and go, thank you, I wouldn't be the success I am today if it wasn't for you. And so starting off, and going after that passion is because of my daughter. She graduated from Princeton University on a full scholarship. And so I had parents asking me, how did you get this young lady to be the success that she is? That's how I know her. I've been in for 7 years. She's now 25. And I started providing tips and techniques and leading workshops for parents and saying, here are some of the things that you can do. But then transitioned it into the workplace and saying, you know what, let's develop them, but here is what it looks like to get them truly engaged, truly invested, because a lot of times we want to say, they're spoiled, they're not loyal, and I remind leaders and go, well, what have we given them to be loyal to? They've seen someone such as myself with 20 years of HR experience say, thank you for 30 years of service, but here's 2 weeks of severance. And they said, that's never going to happen to me. So if we want something different, we have to do something different. And so being able to show leaders what that different looks like, but also showing young professionals some of the ways that they have been making some mistakes with some of the things that they're doing with technology and things of that nature, but seeing that shift occur. So when that leader called me and go, Krishna, if it wasn't for you, they would have been fired. And now here I am promoting them. Thank you very much. That, really makes me feel good. Again, it's my passion and being able to see that I'm making a difference.
That's great. That's great. So the next round of questions have to do with, how do I prepare myself to be a leader in the next generation, or the next 5 years in my case, maybe the next 10 years in some of yours, or maybe the next 30 or 40 in some, maybe 1 or 2 of yours in this room. So let's talk a little bit about Preparation 101. And we're going to start with Darlene again and see how you prepared to be who you are today.
So I think we've heard today the theme of being your authentic self, right? Really staying true to who you are and also enjoying the work that you do. I think that can easily translate into the measure of what you deem to be successful or having achieved success in your career, right? You've identified something that you truly enjoy doing, and you've studied at that craft. You've spent time learning that. For me, being an attorney, being a corporate defense attorney, and then transitioning into compliance and spending, lots of time looking at different healthcare fraud and abuse laws, and really wanting to know that, really wanting to understand my craft, and at the same time, in my mind, always thinking about the person I'd like to become, right? Always having that blueprint in terms of where would I like to go next, and even if you're not quite sure, I'll tell you, when I applied for the job that I currently have, I knew what the job description was, but I came to the interview with the blueprint of what I was going to build. And in that sense, I was very prepared. I had in my mind, in my visual mind, an idea of what I wanted to accomplish. As a young person, I used to high jump. And I ended up being the New Jersey State high jumping champion and the Meet of Champs champion.
Cool.
Thank you. And I didn't say that for applause, but when I had to high jump, I did a 10 count step to the bar. But to get over the bar, I had to visualize myself doing that. If I did not see myself raising my hips high enough and, you know, doing that Fosbury flop, that backwards flip, I never got over the bar. So for me, high jumping was a very mental exercise, just as your career, to me, is a very mental exercise of understanding the dynamics, the people dynamics. How do I have to engage this individual to advocate for what it is I'd like to achieve? Because when I leave this meeting, I'd like to walk away with this. You know, how do I come to this job and have prepared what I'm going to do for you? Whereas other candidates will walk up and say, hey, this is who I am. I'm actually saying this is what I'll build if you hire me, right? It's having that type of visualization and always a mindset of here's where I think I'd like to go, even if you're not sure.
Cary, I don't know how you beat that, Charlene. Thank you for that. It's okay, but maybe you're learning more from listening to this panel than the other way around. But Cary, can you tell us what you're doing right now to prepare to be successful?
Well, something that I do now to prepare to be successful is, being younger, not necessarily being afraid to ask questions, and not because I don't understand it. It's more so to ask questions when you do understand it, to see how they answer it, because you can tell from the responses, it tells you a lot more about the person and the thing than actually, your question itself. Typically, you know the answer, but you just want to hear what they have to say. And that's one of the things that I learned worked very well for Mimi and Linda. They're just very good at...
Mimi is the boss.
Linda's my boss. Mimi is owner.
And your mother.
And my mother. And they're very good
So for those of you who don't know the Feliciano family, I'll just give you something. How many here from Montclair University? Anybody here? Anybody recently? Sharon's in the room. Anybody recently see the new business school named after Feliciano? That's Feliciano. So a tough act to follow, Cary.
Yes,
So go ahead. How did you prepare?
Just not really being afraid to educate myself on just about anything and not seeing anything as beneath me. I find that understanding everything in its entirety is a lot easier to, it's easier to go into something knowing a little bit about everything than just knowing one thing like very well and feeling lost. So just not feeling the pressure of feeling like you have to know everything and not being afraid to ask questions.
There you go. That's actually very good advice for all of us. Never ask a question you don't know the answer to if you're a lawyer, right? But anyway, Donna, what would you give us?
About being successful.
About preparing to be successful in the world, preparing to lead, to be the top of your craft.
Yeah, I would say you definitely need to be a lifelong learner. So in asking questions, I often ask questions that I don't know the answers to because I'm interested in hearing more than I'm interested in talking. So I'm constantly soliciting new business for the company, but I spend a lot less time talking about our company than learning about their company. One of the TED Talks, people want to talk about themselves, and I want to hear about them. And during that discussion, when they are telling me about their firm, I am cranking through every experience that I've had for a relevant way to connect what their business is looking for and what we have to offer. And so being really good at active listening is very, very important, and not making it questioning them as if I'm interrogating them, but asking questions for them to understand that I really am looking to be mindful of their needs and be very appropriate and succinct in what I am going to then attempt to engage them in a discussion about from a consultative standpoint. So I'm not selling them a widget, I'm selling them really a service, but it's only appropriate for me understanding what their needs are. So it's, if I go into a meeting and never take out my presentation materials, I consider that completely successful, because it means that I was able to engage with them for an hour or so, just about understanding what they're looking for, not what my needs are.
Okay, great. And Krishna?
Much like with what she was saying, I couldn't agree more. Leadership to me, and becoming a better leader day by day is always my goal, is really about having a heart of service and servanthood, because to be a good leader, you need to be able to serve not only your clients, but also your staff. So I had to learn and remind myself, even for the 15-year-old that is doing an internship with me, to give him the same consideration as a member on my team who has 30 years in corporate America doing project management. And so to understand what it means as a leader to take not only everybody's opinions into consideration, but how do I elevate that to the next level, to go above and beyond in delivering what it is that they're telling me that they need or that they believe our client needs. So again, it's about having a heart of servanthood. I'm a big believer in servant leadership.
Okay, great. So we're going to go to the last topic before we get to the Q&A, and we're waiting for some insightful questions. Yeah, I hope you're ready. If not, you have to go to mine. And So anyway, Advice 101. It's always the way we end some of these things. What advice would you give the people in the room right now in terms of leadership and meeting the challenges going forward? Now, I'm going to date myself. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have computers. I was the first lawyer in the Southern District of New York to use a computer that was like this big. So what advice do you give all of us in terms of what we see as the future of your respective industries and preparation? I mean, if you knew now, would you do things differently? So, Charlene.
Sure. So, being in compliance, it can be.
Can you guys hear?
Okay. I'll speak louder. Being in compliance, it can be a very high-pressure job. I think being an entrepreneur, being in any corporate setting can be extremely demanding. I think for leaders, what's important is to be able to maintain a level of composure. Always be thinking, always have yourself in a position where you have clarity of mind and you can always figure out how to toggle and get to the next thing or solve the next problem that you have to address, or the next situation that you have to address to accomplish ultimately what it is you're trying to do. As Steve Adubato said, you're driving the bus, right? You're that person. The other thing that I tell members of my team and even young people, as Krishna was mentioning, is choose the option that gives you more options. Right? You always want to be able to set yourself up for success, and when you choose options that limit you, that you don't have different places to toggle, that can create more pressure and more stress for you. So I've always, for myself, always chose the option that would allow me to have more options so that I can see where I'm going and what I'm trying to accomplish. The other thing that I've told my team, and we deal with this on a daily basis, is when you're making decisions and you have a limited amount of information or you have a very tight timeline, always make that decision thinking about what's coming next. So I tell my team, we're playing the game of chess, not checkers, right? We're not just trying to jump the next man. We're trying to set ourselves up so we can get the checkmate. And if you're always approaching business or even your life decisions in that regard, where you're always trying to have more options, be prepared for the next thing, set yourself up for success, even if you don't know what that future you looks like, I think you position yourself in a good place. And then most importantly, enjoy yourself, right? I mean, we all, I started by saying it's all just a timeline with inflection points of experiences that we're going through. And we're making decisions one by one during this timeline. I think you should enjoy yourself along the way because there are fewer milestones. There's more in between time than there is of those types of moments. So that would be my advice to professionals.
Okay. Now, Cary, when I think about you, I'm tempted to say, what advice will you give to your boss? Or what advice would you give to millennials? So, because it's a different question, right? What do you do with your peers versus what do you do when you look ahead to being the leader?
All right, so I guess the advice that I would give to my boss, or really any people out there that have millennials or subordinates underneath them, is really don't be afraid to empower those beneath you. A little bit of trust goes a long way. Doesn't necessarily mean you don't have to double check what they're doing without them realizing it, but letting them, establish themselves and feel that sort of validation and feel that sort of respect and empowerment, they're more likely to value your relationship and their position than if you were to just either try and micromanage them or, just otherwise act untrusting towards them. And then I guess for people my own age, the only thing I would suggest is not allowing your age to dictate your ability to ask questions and to contribute, because everybody expects that you're the youngest one in the room. You're not going to be. You shouldn't say anything. You don't have a perspective. You can't critically think, which is, But in reality, everybody's opinion is valid, and I work with a lot of older people and a lot of younger people, and it doesn't matter to me how old you are. If you have a suggestion, I mean, one of our interns from Montclair State is one of the smartest kids I've ever met. He actually got top 30 under 30 in business, and he was my assistant project manager while he was interning with us. And he had some really good suggestions sometimes, and sometimes he had some really bad ones. but there's the value in just taking that extra moment to listen and to hear what they have to say, because at the end of the day, everybody has insight and everybody has a different point of view. So it's always valuable to hear it.
Right. Donna?
So there's a lot of experienced people in this room. One of my favorite sayings is, do what scares you, for everything else is boring. And through my career, I've always raised my hand anytime we needed to do something new. I was not always prepared or was the smartest person or the most experienced person, but I was always willing to give it a try. That's been very important to me throughout my career. When I moved into sales, I did not want to move into sales. I was very comfortably, have just finished my MBA, and the agreement was that I would go into sales when I was finished. I thought, okay, I will accept that challenge. I didn't want to go into sales because for 10 years before that, I was covering up every time the salespeople sold something that we didn't really have a solution for. So I didn't want to be that person. But when I moved into sales, because I had a very operational background, I would often in meetings say yes, and I would say no when asked, can you do this, or do you have this service? And I vividly remember one of the other salespeople almost kicking me under the table when I said no at a prospect meeting. And later, when we won the deal, I asked the prospect, who now became our client, that was the very first time I'd worked on a big deal. Could you tell me what I did well and what I could do better? So I solicited their feedback, And they said, my God, on the very first meeting, you said no to something, and we had never seen a salesperson ever say no to anything. So we believed every time you said yes. So I gave my team that background, and my team was all males, and I'd say, it's okay to say no sometimes in a meeting. Don't just say that, don't just nod your head and agree with everything. Either ask the questions to get underneath the covers about why they feel they need that, or if we really don't have that service, make sure they understand that, because you get much more credibility later in the discussion. I said, throw a no in even if you don't even have to, because they'll trust you much more.
That's great. I want to get to Krishna and then maybe 2 minutes worth of questions. I just got the flag in the back. So Krishna.
So what my advice to those of you who are here, in my opinion, if you're here, it's because you want to get better. You want to do more, and it's not only just a networking opportunity for you. So with that in mind, I would challenge you to dream again. That's my advice to you. Dream again. A lot of times we're in our positions for 10, 20, 30 years, for those of us who are more senior, and we forget.
See, Cary, you're making us all feel really old, baby.
We forget and we stop dreaming. What do we want to do next year, 5 years from now? It doesn't have to be the same thing that we're doing right now, and that's okay. You can decide, I want to quit and go ahead and bake cookies. I had a young lady who decided, I'm going to quit and start a magazine. Now it's a world-renowned international magazine. She's traveling all over the world, celebrities. She quit to do a magazine. She said, you know, Krishna, the worst case scenario, I'll just have to come back to the medical services industry. But she didn't need to. So dream. Age does not dictate your success in life and the great things that you can do. So don't forget that. And to remember that, connect with the millennials and Gen Zers. Like he said, sometimes they have some ideas that's not so good, but they have some ideas that are really great. And they remind you to take care of yourself. They go on their lunch break and do yoga. Yeah. They actually eat. We need to try that again.
All right.
You know?
So let's take maybe 1 or 2 questions. First hand up over here.
You do have 10.
If you want to just come and speak right here. We don't have time. We have how many? 10 minutes. 5 minutes? Yeah. Okay. Oh, in that case, good. Here,
Hi.
get to the microphone.
Okay. Okay, my name is Mindy Scarlett. My company is Scarlett Consulting Group. And the question I have for the ladies on the panel is, if you had a young lady in front of it, now let's be real here. There are still issues with women leadership that are specific to women. Okay, it's still a man's world out there in a lot of places. So if you had a young lady in front of you and you could only give her one piece of advice in terms of how she can develop as a leader, what would that one piece of advice to that young lady be?
Charlene?
The first thing that came to mind was to be authentic.
Okay.
And
Donna?
Learn to play golf.
Pardon, what you say?
Learn to play golf.
I'm learning to play golf, so they don't. I'm with you on that. That's a long story, Krishna.
You can have it all, but not at the same time.
Amen to that. That was a good one. 3 short ones. She said, you can have it all, just not all at the same time. All right, next question. Any other questions? Yes. Hold on, let me get you that. We're going to make you run around after all.
Is on. I have the opportunity to lead many meetings and to walk into many meetings where people are standing by themselves. And my problem, and I try and engage in their conversation, and my problem is I become too, what was that word you used? Questionable, question them too much. Interrogate, yes. So do you have an example of a way to be a little less interrogatory? Trying to engage them, I become too questionable.
I learned this when I've been working with middle schoolers, but instead of just asking them a question, it's better to say something like, well, what's the best thing that happened to you so far today? Or what was the best of, if you're talking about a trip, what was the best part of the trip? Not like, what did you do every day? Because that, you just feel like, oh, what, I don't want to talk about what I did every single step of the way. But if you can get people to just talk about kind of the most interesting thing that happened on their subway ride, and you can not believe the stories that can come out really quickly. So I would say that that's an easier way to get information.
Anybody else?
I should probably speak loud enough. I always, like, a lot of time when I go to the meetings or recruit, I'm from Hudson County Community College, I recruit for students. A lot of time people tell me, you're too enthusiastic. Why are you too all over kind of thing? And I'm like, if you're not enthusiastic, how you can manage? You will not be able to manage 2 programs at the same time and all other things that's coming. What's your suggestions? Because a lot of time being enthusiastic, making other people feel uncomfortable. What your recommendation? What should I do? Should I be who I am, like, or should I change? Should I make it?
Should you feel sorry for them because they have low energy? Is that the question? Am I putting that the right way? No, you keep doing what you're doing. Be your authentic self. I'm sorry to jump the line here, but really people should hire people like you and get rid of the crew that's behind you. Gosh, I wish I had that.
Let me add to it. I've had people say something similar to me because I'm always smiling, no matter what. So most people who know me know I always got this big smile on my face. But I don't apologize for it. I tell people this is who I am. And just like it rains, sometimes you need some sunshine even in the midst of the rain. So you know what? Let me bring some sunshine and some warmth to you. So welcome me like I'm welcoming you, and it's just who you are, and it's okay. It's okay. Not everybody's always going to be so receptive. But that's okay.
Hand him a brown paper bag and let him hyperventilate.
Okay.
No, keep it right, don't you think?
Right, exactly.
You know, it'll settle out. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Right here. Hello.
I don't know what happened to the mic. Right here.
I have the mic.
Sorry, mic over here.
That's
Sorry.
okay. That's okay.
I was looking here. Go ahead.
So I just wanted to address something that you said about shining your light. Somebody told me recently, don't dim your light, let somebody else put up the sunglasses on.
Right.
So I thought that was a really good way of thinking about it, because we're not going to be everybody's cup of tea, but those people who we are, those are our audience. That's who we're going to inspire. That's who are looking to us. The other people, we just can't please everybody. We can't be all for everybody. So just wanted to share that with you.
And now a question up here. Thank you.
So we talked a little bit about how you guys were able to try something new in your careers. So how do you portray confidence as a leader when you want to try something new but aren't the subject matter expert in that new field?
All right. Which one of you wants that one?
I'll take it.
All right.
Part of it. I think the thing is that you just need to be honest. I tell folks that, you know what, especially when I'm going into businesses and work with leaders,
good answer.
I don't know your business, but I know people. That's what I'm good at. That's why I do HR. And so the confidence comes in regards to, I know what I know. Teach me about your business, and I'm going to teach you what I know about employees to help your business become even more successful. That's how I've been able to go into, I have a client right now in the construction industry. I don't know a thing about construction, but I know people. And so the same thing happens when you want to take on new projects. Here are the strengths that I bring to the table, and I know I'm going to have a little bit of a learning opportunity here, but I'm ready to take it on. What better person than someone who's enthusiastic, excited, and ready for it? I'd rather give it to the person who says, I don't know it all, but I really want to do it, than the person who I know have the knowledge and goes, I don't want to be bothered with this.
That's good. Good. Thank you for covering for the rest of us. Now, there's a question in the back.
Hi, I know the subject matter is challenges that leaders face. And one challenge that continually comes up is about the leadership pipeline. What are you doing as leaders to remove barriers to increase the leadership pipeline, particularly for women in your respective
That was one of my
areas?
Filler questions. How do you...
I promise you I didn't see your list.
It's okay. But that's the thing. I mean, and I'll give you one short example. When I was putting the team together for politics, you know, here's a woman political person who wants to run on a statewide basis, and I was told there was no political director ranking woman, and a woman that I could get to be on my senior leadership team. And I said, well, there never will be unless you go find me one. And so they did. And she's now running another campaign in another area. And that's the question. Don't we all have an obligation to reach as we rise, is how I usually say it. Charlene, what do you think?
Sure. I think absolutely. I think one of the things that I attempt to do is when I hire, I try to hire people that have transferable skills. I'm not necessarily looking for someone that has done what I'm looking for them to do for the last, 30 years. I like to find people that have transferable skills because it serves as a growth opportunity for them. I'm looking to invest in someone. I think people, women especially, when they're applying for jobs or looking to do other roles within the company that they're currently in, should pick stretch roles and not be afraid to try it. I find sometimes men, and it's not a slight against men, I think sometimes men are far more comfortable with saying, I think I can accomplish that, I think I can do that. And I think women oftentimes sit back and wonder and say, well, let me get a little more experience first. And I think we should probably take bolder steps sometimes to at least try it, and also to invest in our people to give them stretch goals to see if they can do it too.
And for myself, what I do is ask leaders, why not? So similar to what we heard Steve say, when you see that discrepancy taking place, I challenge the leaders and go, why don't you have a woman? What are you doing or haven't done that makes a woman not decide to try to step up to the plate? What's going on? So have them to actually be courageous and look at their organization themselves, hold the mirror up and go, you know what, I haven't given them an opportunity. I haven't had a conversation. I haven't expanded the role and to say, you know what, come here and have a seat at the table. And so, again, sometimes you just gotta ask the question, why not? And why not again? Almost turn into like that 5-year-old, that they keep asking until you get to really the heart of the matter. And you don't have to push so hard, but just enough to sometimes make leaders think is enough.
All right, one more question, and then we'll break for lunch, I believe.
I think it's Cary.
Cary.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Cary.
I can't see with my glasses, which are on my head.
I feel your pain.
No, but this is all really interesting, and the question I have for you is generational, because I have a 30-year-old nephew, and he just sees a different world than I do. And, so I don't know how much of this seems to be relevant gender-wise among your generation and the people that you work with. Or do you think people tend to be more independent or entrepreneurial, or is there still a base there that kind of goes with the flow status quo?
Well, you'll get, if you ask that to a bunch of people my age, you'll get a lot of different answers. But from what I've seen, there are a lot of people, millennials my age, that are hard workers and entrepreneurial, and don't really care what other people think or do, and then there are group thinkers that want to just do what everybody else is doing and expect to get ahead by being out every single night with the group every weekend, whatever, but it's the people that are my age that actually understand the power of independence and determination that actually end up getting ahead, because they realize, if you're doing what everybody else is doing, that's never going to get you to where you want to be if you're trying to be successful. You could do whatever you want, but you won't make it far in life if you just try and do what everybody else is doing and please everybody.
I think that was a great question. Yeah. That was a fabulous question, because I'm still trying to figure out my kids.
Studies have shown that millennials are much more entrepreneurial. But we've set them up that way because, for example, they're now able to stay on their parents' insurance until they're 27 years old. So they can go, I don't need this job, I'm on my mom and dad's insurance. I can go ahead and experiment and try to find my career or launch this business and things like that. Also, like I said, they learn from what we went through with the economy. So they're like, I need to have a plan B, C, and D, because there is no guarantee that I'm going to have a job next week. But the shift that we're seeing in regards to Gen Z is that Gen Z seems to have more of an inclination to not be entrepreneurial. They want a job, they want to stay in, they want to, those are your group, the folks that are under the age of 21, 22. They're coming in with the mindset of, you know what, I do want to stay in a job for 5, 10 years. I do want to be developed by this one company. And they have in mind Google and things like that. So we are seeing a bit of a shift based on recent studies that have been taking place between Gen Z, or what we call the iGen generation, and millennials. So just know that there is some distinct differences between the two generations. Do not lump them in together thinking they're going to do the exact same as millennials. They're fine because I have 3 kids and I have 1 in each generation. So I have my millennial and then I have my 17-year-old, and she's looking at her big sister like, oh, I don't have to start a business. I can just come work for yours. I don't need to do all of that. I'll just follow in your footsteps. So you have that happening too. So just be mindful of that.
And the insurance, actually, it's 26.
26.
I just had to go through it.
Sorry, 26. 26.
So reality is about to set in, Cary. All right, so I think I love to leave a meeting laughter, so we're going to stop right here. We're going to break for lunch. I want to thank our sponsor today, NJBIA, and all of our panel members who will be back again this afternoon. That was really very nice. Thank you, thank you, thank you.